Now, we all know the risks of dangerous driving, don't we? But there's a warning today about the number of people being caught not wearing seatbelts.
Yeah, one police force installed AI cameras to help catch driving offences and found that 6,000 people in a year were breaking seatbelt laws.
Just in one force. Yeah, Devon and Cornwall Police say it's part of a growing trend and it's time to raise awareness. Here's John.
Here's your coffee.
3 years ago, Seth Marks was on a night out drinking with friends when he made two decisions he says he'll regret for the rest of his life. He got into a car with a drunk driver and sitting in the back, he failed to put on his seatbelt.
That can all change in just 2 seconds. It does not take much at all. It's just, you know, if you make one bad decision, you can pay the rest of your life for it.
His mum Julie remembers the phone call in the middle of the night.
And at 2:22 in the morning, I get that phone call, and it's a phone call you really don't want, ever. That changed everybody's life. Everybody's life. But hey.
Still just 21 years old, Seth is now paralysed from the chest down, and the damage to his spinal cord affects him in so many ways.
People think of people that are paralysed of just being in a wheelchair and just can't move, but I mean, I struggle to do literally anything for myself now. I need 24-hour care. I mean, getting dressed in the morning, showering, you know, just basic human needs. You know, I can't do any of that for myself now.
Ironically, he was experiencing severe muscle spasms that would throw him from his chair, so he had to wear a seatbelt to keep him safe. His message to young drivers and passengers is unequivocal.
Wearing seatbelts, it's not something that should be ignored. I really, really strongly believe that if I was wearing a seatbelt during the accident, I wouldn't have sustained like such bad injuries.
Young people actually see somebody like Seth and say, this is what happens. Everything changes, not just Seth's life, my life, you know, and everything that you want for your children goes out the window. And you just change direction.
The police force where Seth lives, Devon and Cornwall, has been pioneering the use of these roadside cameras. They use artificial intelligence to learn what to look for. In extraordinary detail, they capture various angles, and what they found, they describe as staggering.
Run us through this one, Neil.
So clearly no seatbelt being worn by the driver here. You can see the mechanism down here with nothing clipped in. The passenger that also doesn't appear to be wearing a seatbelt, and then there's an unrestrained child sat on her lap as well.
Yeah, and a young child.
Yes, yeah, very young. Yep.
The original idea was to catch drivers using their mobile phones, but they were amazed at what was actually happening. So many people, especially young motorists, not wearing their seatbelts.
The only person you're hurting is yourself by not wearing it, and it absolutely beggars belief that individuals don't want to wear a seatbelt.
Staff here want the government to crack down in order to change behaviour.
And the government have floated the idea, which we have lobbied for as well, to make the non-wearing of seatbelts an endorsable offence, i.e. one that has penalty points on your driving licence. Currently it doesn't. We think that's a gap. We think that there needs to be more emphasis or more accountability put back on drivers and passengers to wear seatbelts, and we think that the imposition of penalty points is going to go a long way towards achieving that.
That's what it will look like.
Seth and Julie are planning an extension to build a bathroom next to his room. At the moment, he showers in the kitchen. Life is obviously difficult, uncomfortable, and often painful. But Seth believes if he'd done the simplest of things and worn his seatbelt that night, it would all be so different. John Maguire, BBC News, Devon.
We're joined now by Luca Straker from Road Safety Charity Break and Chief Superintendent Mark Clothier from the National Police Chiefs Council. Thank you to both of you for joining us. Luca, you couldn't have a more stark, clear example of the importance of seatbelts there with Seth.
Well, no, I mean, at our charity, we support over 2,000 families every year who have been bereaved or seriously injured following a road crash. We see the devastation that they cause. It changes lives, not just for the family, but for the communities, the workplaces, the schools. And it sends a ripple effect right through those communities, which is why it's so important we make sure that every journey that everyone has, you get where you need to be and it's safe.
Yeah, let's turn to Mark. I mean, what do you make of what we've seen and those figures? 6,000 people just in one force area not wearing belts.
I think the figures are absolutely staggering, and it surprises me that people still choose to get in a vehicle, whether that's as a driver or as a passenger, and not wear their seatbelt. But the figures speak for themselves, and we've heard some shocking statistics there from Devon and Cornwall. But we also know that approximately 1,600 people every year die on the road to the UK, and nearly 30,000 are killed or seriously injured. And out of those fatalities, approximately 25% of those people are not wearing a seatbelt.
That's a huge number. I think for any of us that sort of grew up in the 70s and 80s, it felt like there was such a sort of publicity campaign about wearing seatbelts. It seems incredible. And looking at the figures, are we talking about mainly young people? Is there an aversion amongst young people to wearing a seatbelt?
You're absolutely right about growing up in the 70s and the 80s, because I count myself in that category, and I think perhaps that's the reason why it's something that I do all the time. And if you look at the demographics of those who don't wear their seatbelts, it definitely does seem to be younger people that are putting themselves at risk by getting in the vehicles and not wearing them.
So, Luca, what do you think we need to do to reach those young people, particularly, who are not wearing belts as routinely at the moment?
Well, we need to make sure that every single time we get into the vehicle that everybody is wearing a seatbelt. We all take a responsibility for, our safety, but also the safety of those that's in the vehicle with us. We have our Road Safety Week is next week, and one of the things we're going to be talking about in schools and in organisations is to go and talk about, roadworthiness in your vehicle and making sure that you wear your seatbelt, make sure your tyres are good. Just make sure that you're doing everything you can to make your journey as safe as possible.
What sense do you get as to why people aren't wearing a seatbelt?
Well, I mean, it can be a number of different things. I mean, what we tend to look at is kind of education. We want to try and educate people on why you should wear a seatbelt. What's the impact? And the impact is that, like I say, 5 people die on the roads every day. Your seatbelt is one of the best things, the most simple and effective technology we have in the car to stop that from happening. We also, sharing experiences like we see with Seth, and hopefully that people can see that and make sure that every time they get into the vehicle that they want to make sure that they've got the seatbelt on and somebody else does, their passengers do too. And then obviously, with the police and these cameras, hopefully that can encourage people to make sure that they do have the seatbelts in as well.
Yeah.
But do we know why people aren't? One thing you were mentioning to me just before we started is that there's a sense that it's not necessarily cool to wear a seatbelt.
Well, I've had conversations with your staff as well, with saying there's kind of almost trends that are happening to say that you shouldn't be wearing your seatbelt, but that's why it's really important that we have this kind of coverage, that we have Road Safety Week, and that every opportunity we're really trying to push onto everyone, including the young people, that wearing a seatbelt is one of the most important things you can do in your car.
Mm-hmm. Mark, getting that message across then to young people, we all remember the sort of public information films back in the 70s and 80s we were talking about. Do we need to sort of go where young people are? Do we need to be doing more digital campaigns, social media campaigns to get that message out?
I think it's a mixture of using a variety of different tactics. I think enforcement is clearly a legitimate tactic, and that fear of being caught. But I think you're right. I think that education, engagement, particularly with young children, in the right way is absolutely key. And as you say, if you go back to the 70s and the 80s, and the legislation actually came in the 80s, excuse me, there was a really strong campaign around that, which I think is still in people's minds. And I think it is probably time that we refresh that messaging and deliver the right messages as part of that education to young people to make that difference.
And do you think it would make it easier in terms of enforcement if you did get penalty points if you weren't wearing a seatbelt, in the same way that if you're using a mobile phone in the car?
I think there's a place for the right level of enforcement or the right level of sentencing. And I think in some ways stronger sentencing will increase that fear, increase that use of enforcement to reinforce the message. But at the end of the day, we're not here to catch people. The really simple message is we want people to wear their seatbelts, because if they get in the vehicle and put them on and that becomes habit and behaviour, that will prevent people being killed or seriously injured on our roads.
Not here to catch people, but given how many people have been caught by these AI cameras, Mark, can you foresee more of these cameras being used by more forces across the country?
I think it's absolutely right that we look at technology to work with policing to make a difference. We've seen over a number of years the numbers of people killed and seriously injured on our roads has plateaued. We know there continue to be many different complex and competing demands on policing time, and the use of technology to support us, I really believe, will make a difference.
Chief Superintendent Luca Straker, thank you so much for talking to us this morning. Thank you.